This could be the secret to becoming the person you want to be. Do you want to live a healthier lifestyle? Maybe stop smoking, maybe sleep a little bit earlier, or maybe you just want to succeed in your career, or maybe just be a better person. Oftentimes, making such big changes could be very difficult. And like, how many people, think about it, how many people are trying to make these changes every single day? In fact, some areas of our economy are built on the fact that people aren't going to change, or on people's wishes of changing. Look at the weight loss industry. Look at all those alpha males and alpha females popping up on your For You page talking about how like, oh, this is if you don't realize, I hate those people. But think about how many people, like those people, they preach and they say that, oh, I have the solution to everything. I'm not going to say I have all the answers, right? Because no one has all the answers, but I do think that this is a key component in kind of starting that change and initializing that change. And I think that this secret is actually hidden in plain sight and hidden in plain English, or I guess plain Spanish. Plain Spanish, what? More specifically, I think that it has to do with the difference between to be and to be. Sorry, in Spanish. The permanent form of to be, which is ser, and the temporal version of to be, which is estar. The thing I want to point out, and I think the secret is that we keep mixing the two together. And just a quick reframing of every time we use the verb to be could help us stick to those changes that we want to make and help us improve and basically start making changes to becoming that person that we want to be. Again, is this the golden rule? I don't know, right? But I do think that it could be a tool in your arsenal of starting to make those changes to become the person that you want to be and to become a better person, whether it has to do with becoming healthier or to like improving your career or being a better person, being like nicer to your friends and family, whatever. This could be a really useful tool to hopefully make those changes that you want to make. I can't promise anything, as I said before, but there have been numerous social experiments that kind of point to and kind of provide evidence that this could be the case in how we start making those changes. So what I'm arguing is that we should strive to reframe our thoughts and our words to start using ser, the permanent form of to be, when we're talking about permanent traits that we want to keep, versus using estar for those things that happen in our lives that we don't want to identify with, or for traits that we just want to drop. So this sounds kind of vague, kind of obscure and weird, but let me give you some examples. Let's say it's the day of your finals. You studied hard and you did the best of your abilities, right? But you didn't receive the marks or the grades that you wanted to receive. There's two ways of explaining it to yourself. There's two ways of summarizing this event to yourself. Number one, I'm a failure. How could I be so stupid? I'm an idiot. I'm just not cut out for this. Or, dang it, I failed. I should have reviewed XYZ instead of ABC. I need to study harder next time. So in those two cases, which version of the story that you're telling yourself is easier to come out of, right? It's easier to dig your way out of. In the first case, you're using that event of you missing the mark on your test, and you're literally identifying yourself with it. I'm a failure. I'm an idiot. I'm so stupid. Versus the other version, the star form, right? You're just saying that it was an event that happened, right? You're not identifying with it. In fact, it's kind of like there's a separation between event and identity. In the second one, that the first one doesn't have. The first one, you're identifying with the event. And that's what I'm saying. We need to reframe our thoughts so that we don't let single events become our identity. In the first person's case, because they failed, they're now a failure. If you're a failure, that means that you failed at basically everything you did. You're a failure in life means that you failed at everything you did. Versus the second person, I failed. I should do this, this, and this. Or I just failed, right? Let's move on. You're separating the two. It's not, they're two different entities, right? The event and the identity, the person that did the event, are two different people. Right, so you can always change. You can always like get yourself back up. You've fallen, now you can just get back up. Right, the other one, they fall in and they can't get up. Help! I've fallen and I can't. you know the ad. I'm gonna play that here somewhere.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
But I want to call to attention a really interesting social experiment that occurred where they tested a bunch of kids, right, doing various tasks. How the experiment went was there were 3 tasks in total. Task A was an easy task. Task A was an easy task. Task B was a hard task. And then task C was an easy task again, right? So when easy, hard, easy. Now, after finishing the first easy test, some of the kids were complimented by saying, wow, you did number 8? You're so smart. Or wow, you completed it. That you're so intelligent. That's good job. Wow. In essence, the compliments that were given to those kids were kind of linking the kids' identity of being smart, of being intelligent, of being whatever, to their performance on the test. Now it was time for the harder task. When they did the harder task, obviously a lot of them, like, they weren't able to finish, or like maybe they got a lot of the questions wrong. Now in this case, those kids that were complimented by being called like smart or intelligent or whatever, because they identified their identity with that test, right? Well, they passed the first one, so then they were smart, but then they failed the second one, and that in turn made it so that they actually took a big hit later on when they did task 3, the easy task again, right, on the same easy level as the first task. So right, easy, hard, easy. So when they did task 3, they actually performed worse. They performed worse by 20% than their initial score. 20%. So what does this mean? How does this translate to everyday life? We're not just doing tasks or whatever, right? How does this relate to me and you, right? Well, let's say you're trying to quit smoking. You're doing really well. It's been 3 weeks since you've last taken a lit a cigarette. What's the phrase? Whatever. It's been 3 weeks since you last had a cigarette. And then all of a sudden, just life happens, right? You've been super stressed out at work. Some random thing happens around your area, whatever, right? It's so stressful, it builds up, and then like you just can't help it and you just light one up. Does that make you a failure? Are you a failure now? Are you screwed? No, you just messed up. You've fallen once, but you can just get back up and start again. Don't identify yourself with a single event. Don't identify yourself with any number of events. Because life happens, because shit happens, you can't control for everything, and you have to give yourself enough grace in order to understand that you aren't that specific event. And this is for anything and everything, right? Not just smoking. Oh, I overate yesterday, I messed up on my diet. Or I can't believe I snapped at my child and then I yelled at him, right? Your identity and worth as a person is not defined based on specific events. In the previous experiment with the kids and the 3 tasks, there was actually a second group of kids who were, instead of being complimented based off of like their smartness being tied to their results, instead of saying, oh, you're so smart, or oh, you're so intelligent, instead they said, wow, you worked really hard to get that answer. Good job. Or something like that, right? Like, you worked really hard, or you studied really hard for this test. I know that you're a hard worker. In that case, then, after the second test, right, they still performed poorly, right? It was a harder test. But in the third test, right, the one again, easy, hard, easy, so it's the same difficulty level as the first one, they actually did 30% better than the initial reading. 30%. So just the difference in how you're complimenting someone and how you're getting that kid to kind of identify themselves as, one, I'm smart because I passed the test, versus I'm a hard worker. I'm smart based on because I passed the test, is you're linking your identity to the test. Hard worker is not linked to the test, but instead it's kind of evidence that you're a hard worker, if that makes sense. In the first group of kids, because their identity was linked to the test and they failed the previous test, then their identity is now, I'm a failure, I'm an idiot, I'm stupid, as opposed to I'm a hard worker. I can keep being a hard worker if I pass, if I fail, if I whatever. So I guess this is a long-winded way of saying, just choose how you want to identify yourself, right? And choose to make sure that your identity does not depend on specific events, especially events that don't have that you don't have matter, you can't control, right? Or that you have minimal control over, or things that were you just messed up, right? Everyone messes up. Just because you overate last night at a birthday party, just because you were too tired and you were hungover and then you woke up 3 hours late, you missed whatever recital, you failed once, just get up and try again. The reason why we don't change a lot oftentimes is because we're scared of failure. When your key metric of succeeding is perseverance and getting up when you fall in, you can't fail. You can't fail as long as you keep trying. Now, to drive home how important this idea of identity is, right, and how much we kind of follow and how much we act based off of what we perceive our identity to be and what we want our identity to be. There was another experiment, I think it was a Stanford experiment at some daycare or whatever, and there were 2 groups of kids, right? One group of kids, and it was basically recess, and they were asked to clean up. One group of kids was asked, oh, could you help clean up? The other group of kids were asked, oh, could you be a helper and help clean up? Which group of kids do you think cleaned up more? Or like it was more, I guess, motivated? That's not the right word, but like more like willing to clean up. The group of kids that were asked, could you be a good helper and help clean up? Why? Because kids want to be helpful, like they want to be a helper. Like obviously, like you're playing with your toys or whatever, right? No one wants to help. I mean, yeah, I'm sure people want to help, but like you'd much rather just play with your toys, play with your dinosaur or your Barbie or whatever. But they also want to be a good helper. Simply by adding that identity to it, could you be a good helper and help clean up? Those kids in their minds, they were probably thinking, I want to be a good helper. I'm gonna go help clean up, right? Because being a good helper, being a helper is an ideal trait to have. Like even kids know it. And I think this is the case with everyone, right? Everyone has an ideal person or ideal form of themselves that they want to be, right? No one lives life wanting to be the villain. I guess that's what the book said. I'm like 95% sure that's true, right? But like no one wants to live life being the villain, right? Even if you think about Thanos, right? From Marvel, right? He did what he thought was honestly the best thing to do. If you look at all the demons from Demon Slayer, I think all of them had like some backstory, which is like, whatever the case, like there's a bunch, right? Like there's the twins, there's the spider family, whatever. They all had like some ideal in their mind that put them as the protagonist, right? No one wants to be the villain. Everyone is a hero of their own story. But we live life based off of either one, the identity we want to be, or two, the identity we think we are. So if you live life thinking I'm a failure, I'm fat, I'm stupid, I'm useless, I'm slow, then you're going to live in a way that basically solidifies what you think your identity is. Does it make sense? So I guess what I'm trying to say is that I think that if we want to change, right, for the better, then we have to reframe how we describe ourselves. We have to separate our identity from the events and from our past. Like even if you look at gym goers, right, you often see like the buffest people, like super shredded or whatever, they're super lean or whatever, and they'll have body dysmorphia or they'll have all these things because why? Because in their mind they're still that super like skinny kid growing up in middle school, or they were that fat kid in class growing up in high school or middle school, right? It's because they are still identifying themselves with that person. And it's kind of figuring out and realizing that there is a difference in permanent to be and temporal to be, right? In stare and a star. I think that the key to change is realizing that we aren't locked by the events that we did or by the past that we lived. In order to change and make those changes and also feel that we've changed, we'll have to describe and reframe how we kind of categorize or how we identify ourselves, right? And realize that there is this difference between stare and star, right? Stare and a star. So random video, but I read the book Redirect by Timothy Wilson, and he goes through, he explains this a lot better than I do. And I just found his arguments really intriguing, really interesting. And if you want to check out the book, I'm sure like check out your local library. If your library doesn't have it, then I'll leave a link down below. But yeah, otherwise I found this really interesting. Maybe you have your thoughts, please leave them in the comments down below. But yeah, that's it. Bye.